In the heart of an African city, where the sun painted the earth golden, lived a woman of extraordinary beauty. Her name was Aden, and her radiance was beyond imagination. Men, both young and old, single and married, were drawn to her like moths to a flame. The streets would hush whenever she walked by, her presence turning heads and stirring whispers of admiration. Gifts of gold, fabric, and rare perfumes arrived at her doorstep daily. The wealthiest merchants, warriors, and even noblemen sought her hand in marriage, but she remained elusive, always smiling yet never committing. What none of them knew was that her beauty was a fleeting illusion, one that vanished with the setting sun. As dusk fell and the world settled into darkness, Aden's truth emerged. Her flawless skin shivered into scales, her bright eyes darkened into hollow pits, and her silken hair coiled into tangled vines. She became a monstrous creature, cursed to hide in the shadows until dawn. Each night, she locked herself in her home, ensuring that no one ever witnessed her transformation. Servants who had stayed past nightfall never lived to tell the tale. The secret of her beauty was protected by fear, and those who sought to discover more never returned. Among the many men who desired Aden, there was one who stood out, Obodi, a wealthy and powerful merchant. He was not just captivated by her beauty but also obsessed with making her his wife. Unlike the others, he was persistent, offering her riches beyond measure and promising a life of luxury. After months of relentless pursuit, Aden, weary of hiding and enticed by his wealth, finally accepted his proposal. The city erupted in celebration, believing it to be the grandest union of the age. But Aden knew that her secret was at risk, and for the first time in years, fear gripped her heart. Their wedding was a spectacle of grandeur. Dancers filled the streets, musicians played for days, and the finest wines flowed freely. Obodi beamed with pride as he took Aden's hand, unaware of the nightmare awaiting him. As night approached, Aden felt dread creeping in. She had spent years avoiding such a moment, but now there was no escape. She would have to share a bed with her husband, a husband who would soon discover her terrible secret. That night, as Obodi lay beside his stunning wife, he marveled at his fortune. But as the midnight hour approached, he noticed something strange. Aden trembled beside him, her breath ragged. Then, before his very eyes, her body twisted and morphed into something beyond comprehension. Her skin blackened and cracked, her eyes glowed red, and her delicate fingers stretched into grotesque claws. A monstrous snarl erupted from her throat, filling the room with a sound that sent chills down his spine. Horror gripped Obodi as the woman he had adored was no longer human. Obodi's instinct screamed for him to run, but fear paralyzed him. Aden turned towards him, her monstrous form towering over him in the moonlight. He could see her sharp teeth glistening, her breath thick with an eerie scent. With a burst of terror-driven strength, he leaped off the bed, knocking over a lamp as he scrambled toward the door. Aden let out a guttural growl, but Obodi was already sprinting through the halls, his screams waking the household. Servants rushed to see what was happening, only to freeze in terror as the monstrous figure emerged from the shadows. Obodi ran into the streets, shouting about the horror he had seen. The townspeople, awakened by his cries, gathered in confusion. Seeing the mighty merchant in such a state of panic was shocking enough, but when Aden's monstrous figure appeared at the doorway, their confusion turned to terror. Women shrieked, men stumbled backward, and some fainted at the sight. The beautiful lady they had all adored was now an abomination. Aden, realizing she had been exposed, let out a deafening roar before retreating into the darkness, leaving behind the city in chaos. The elders of the city, shaken by the events of the night, gathered in an emergency meeting. They called upon the oldest seer in the land, who revealed the truth: Aden had been cursed from birth. Her mother, a woman scorned by a jealous witch, had pleaded for her daughter to be beautiful. But beauty came at a cost. Every night, she would turn into a monster, her true form hidden only by the daylight. The city, once enamored with Aden, now saw her as a cursed being. Fear replaced admiration, and whispers of what should be done to her spread like wildfire. Determined to rid themselves of the monster, the townspeople formed a mob. Torches in hand, they searched every corner of the city, chanting for her death. Obodil, though still shaken, led the hunt, his love for Aden replaced by a thirst for vengeance. But Aden was nowhere to be found. She had fled to the deep forest beyond the city, where the trees whispered ancient secrets and the rivers carried the voices of spirits. There, she sat by the water's edge, staring at her reflection, a reflection that had once captivated many, but now brought her nothing but sorrow. Alone in the wilderness, Aden wept for the life she had lost. She had tasted love, wealth, and admiration, yet none of it had been real. She had been a prisoner of her own beauty, and now she was an outcast. Days turned to weeks, then months. The city moved on, erasing her from their memories. But every now and then, whispers of a haunting presence in the forest would spread, of a woman who was breathtakingly beautiful in the morning but unseen by night. Some claimed she still wandered, hoping for someone who could love her for what she truly was. But in a world that only valued beauty, Aden remained cursed and alone.